Hey guys, Tyler here, and this is a review of the Swordier Type 18C longsword with side rings. I want to talk about a couple of things. One, a review of this sword, but also about side rings on swords in general and this typology of sword. So I'll start with the scabbard. Only complaint on the scabbard, really, which is impressive because it's where they admit they're saving cost. The pleather belt on it is a little wide. It should probably be a thicker material and skinnier for the 1500s, more like this thickness here. The belts in the late 15th, 16th century tended to be very skinny. So this would be more thickness for like a high medieval or early medieval belt. Other than that, though, get on with the sword in a moment. Nice stitching around the mouth, so that's a little reinforced. And very well fitted. So wood core scabbard, 2 little pieces of leather to make it a little easier to center. Overall very nice. And then you've got your stainless steel chape at the end to reinforce it. So considering that's what they cheaped out on, I've only got one complaint. Not bad at all. Let's get on to the sword itself. Let's give you a tip to pommel. So, on the tip, I do not know that you're going to be able to tell this. Slightly reinforced. This is a late period sword, so into the Middle Ages, into the Renaissance, late 1400s, throughout the 1500s probably. These are pretty rare. There's only a few surviving examples of these, none of which I think have the side rings on it, but it would make sense for swords of the period. If you wanted the more 1400 style, they make it without the side rings as well. Oh, and for full transparency, I paid for this out of my own pocket. I didn't tell them I was ordering this. I wanted to get an impression of how the quality and quality control was on their swords when they weren't giving it to me or weren't giving me any sort of discount. So, there's the blade. I heard from the earlier versions they did not have this reinforced tip, which is characteristic of the late type longswords, because we have issues with getting through late mail. Mail by the 1500s is kind of going out of fashion, but what mail is there is very tight, close rings made of much higher quality steel, so it's much more difficult to get through than earlier types of mail. And so we have there's a very severe taper at the end of the blade. Huge, wide blade here at the base, tapering down to a tiny point, but it flares out again. Now, a disadvantage of this type of sword means that the tip is not quite as good at cutting because it has to be slightly broader. And I'm talking maybe a 0.5 millimeter taper. It's really only visible in person. This thing is an excellent thruster. You basically have to put 0 effort in to stabbing with it. And I'll give a brief demonstration of its cutting power here in a second. I've not been able to get a great cutting setup, but I'll show you a couple things with it. Point of balance, very close to the handle, like 2-3 inches maybe, very close. So despite the fact that this sword weighs over 1,700 grams, so this is like an almost 4-pound sword. It's a chunker. It is actually quite nimble in 2 hands. In one hand, yeah, you're kind of having to heave it around. I wouldn't want to use it in one hand for a long period of time. But by this period, these are no longer sidearms. This is either a dedicated dueling sword or a skirmishing sword. It has a sidearm. It's a little shorter than some long swords. Comes just below my sternum, so my sternum sits right here. It's right about belly button level, so it's a little shorter than some long swords. So you can wear it without having too much banging around on you, but I mean, think about it. The much more common sidearms at the time Katzbalger, at least in Landsknecht use, are much shorter than this and have a one-handed handle. This gives you a nice array of weapons for finding gaps in mail voiders, and it is an excellent chopper for fighting either unarmored opponents in duels or for fighting lightly armored opponents such that didn't have a chance to get their armor on, or just didn't wear as much armor. We see a lot of depictions by the late Middle Ages of guys just wearing helmet, breastplate, gauntlets maybe, and then of course later on the folds start coming down to cover the upper thighs, but the calves are exposed, the arms are often exposed, often the hands and the face are totally exposed. So having something that can cut incredibly well, but also thrust when we need to get in those tight gaps, excellent. Something that is interesting about how wide the blade is it feels very nice for half swording. I have a lot of surface area that I can grip onto and stab, and I'm at little risk of cutting myself. I won't say no risk because there's an air gap there as I'm pinching it with my hands. I really can't grip all the way around it because it's so wide, and I don't think that's something you'll want to do anyways, but we could deflect, stab into the visor. We could deflect the other way, bash with this nice heavy pommel, which is doing a lot of work bringing the weight in line. The side rings as well, doing a good job of that, and offering me ample hand protection so that when I do thrust up against something solid, my hand has no shot of riding up. Of course, the crossguards are doing that as well, but it's offering ample protection to my hand on this side and on this side. Now, they also allow me to get my thumb gripped over here, which allows me to torque the blade to the side more in middle cuts, like so. I can finger the guard over like so, especially if I am having to use it in a one-handed capacity. Say I'm opening a door or climbing on a ladder. I can do this and still have something threatening. As I said, it takes basically no effort for the thrust to function, so that, very nice there. I've done some cutting with this so far. See if we can see how the edge is. Mostly trying to hit with the point of impact, so 2/3 of the way down the sword. Overall, it is looking pretty good. You can tell how thin and fine that edge is. It basically disappears in profile. Like, this would be very frightening to be sparring against or fighting against rather, because as you parry, you see the edge profile very clearly. It's ridiculous, it's huge, and then it basically disappears as you come in. Now, some people were asking why have a blade so wide. There's some cutting dynamics that it affects that I don't fully understand, but what I do understand is that when I use this thumbs up grip to support my blade, either in parrying off to the side in a modified Schlüssel or key, or a modified Posta di Bicorno, sorry, I forgot the Italian for that, or Einhorn. It helps me here, and it helps me as I am delivering the Zwerchhau from above, or simply parrying an ox on either side, or delivering Stutzhau or Krumpau, pretty much any of these things. It means that my thumb has basically a full inch of protection on either side as other weapons. Let me get a stick here. As other weapons are coming in, what's the best way to demonstrate this? If I go to parry the stick, it has to come all the way there, basically wrap fully around and be aiming directly at my thumb in order to hit it. Whereas, if you imagine the sword was only this wide, and it comes around here. Boom. The angle of deflection is much shallower that it needs to hit my thumb. And if you cut my thumb off in a sword fight, you may not win then and there, but it becomes much more difficult for me to continue fighting with swords or pretty much any melee weapon. So that is one advantage of the very wide blade that isn't often talked about. The guard here, I think it's hardened steel. It definitely sounds like hardened steel. Is incredibly shiny. I don't know what they made it out of or what they've coated it with. Alex, if you or anybody else from Swordier can comment on that, let me know, because that is super interesting. Now, the one thing I have to complain about on the fit and finish, and you can barely see it on camera, it's more noticeable in person, I have tried polishing this out. Yeah, there we go. There's this kind of residue, and you can kind of feel it. And I assume it is from whatever they use to laser etch this in place. But this will not come off no matter what. I've used Ballistol, WD-40, WD-40 penetrating oil, just plain old baking grease, and that will not come off. The rest of this is just fingerprints, and those will come off nice and easy. Grab right here. Show you. See, so let's see if I can show you this coming off. Yeah, there we go. And then this, rub off these fingerprints up here. But yeah, that does not want to come off. But it's a budget sword, so finish issues I'm not really worried about. This is rock solid. Nothing is moving, nothing is loose. The genuine leather handle, I'm always never quite sure how I feel about stitching straight down the side. The wire wraps, it doesn't send too much in the way of vibrations towards the hand when you hit something. Obviously, you can see there's always going to be some when you're hitting something with a spring steel object. There's going to be some vibrations. If your edge alignment is good though and you're not hitting something too hard, it really doesn't matter. So let me just get a quick flow in here, and then I'll try a really hard thing to cut and just show you a quick demonstration of what this thing can do. But don't know if you can hear that, but it's a very elegant swish through the air. Because the point of balance is so close to the hands, the point just wants to stay in the opponent's face, indexed exactly where you want it to be. The advantage of that is whenever somebody wants to beat your sword and take the point out of their face, it's easier and easier for it to just stay right there. We need to get a bigger room for indoor filming. Might try to set up the upstairs that we don't use for it. Well, my knee is starting to feel better. So there's a basic flow, just some basic overhaul, it's fair how. Nothing from below because you wouldn't be able to really see it with our current setup. Now, like I said, I'm going to try really hard cutting. People say, pool noodles, what? Yeah, well, pool noodle, nothing inside it. No stabilization, just sitting on the ground. Incredibly cheap way to test cuts and incredibly difficult. Because it's got no resistance, I mean, your sword is just going to want to slap it to the side, basically. So I'll give you a test to show you that this is indeed difficult with complain about the fact that this is compromised now. Whatever, I've got some others I can bring in. Okay. And here I'm going to go immediately to a two-handed grip. Try to make sure I'm not cutting anything out of frame. Where did I hit that? I have no idea where I hit. Oh, there we go. So that was a bad cut on my part. And yeah, still, you wouldn't be very happy. So not the first bad cut I did, just a dent. Second bad cut I did still bit in here. So let's go again. Dang. I'm trying to get it to stand up now. Probably against any sort of judgment, but let's see if this makes any sense. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I've got it standing. Again, another bad cut. That one was just a dent. That one was all me. Much better one there. Yeah. Nice deep cuts. And I'm doing these pretty lightly too. So let's see, let's get some more follow through. Try the other edge. That was funny. Big old chunk cut off there. Yeah. That is pretty gnarly. So I'm in about an inch or so off of no resistance. This can bend around all the time. So that should give you somewhat of an idea of hitting a target that is moving. That is, as somebody's pulling back to block, hitting their arm as it's coming back. Big gaping gash in there. Huge amounts of damage from this. I'll get you guys some destructive tests, or at least more abusive tests on this in the future. First impressions though, very impressed. Very, very impressed. Literally there's two little things. The width on the scabbard belt and the... What was I saying? I switched the side, so I forgot about it. There's an easy solution for that. Just don't show that side. This little weird smudging here that's difficult to get rid of. I'll let you guys know how the edge holds up. Thanks for watching, guys. Check it out.